Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I would like to talk about a weirdness of use effects, right? So over here I have a little pretty form that's asking me to put stuff here. So let's say I'm going to put in I am putting stuff here, right? So I hit the shiny button, then it says what? My name is I'm putting stuff here. But what if I do not hit the shiny button, then hit enter? I see a lot of weird stuff happening in the console, right? So today we are going to take a look at why this is happening and the reason for that. So first and foremost, let's take a look at the code that we have here. It's a very simple code. React with TypeScript, style component, semantic UI React. Right, very neat. Okay, so I have two components over here, a submit button, which is this one, then an app testing, right? So where my page is, very neat. Okay, so in the app testing component, I have a few bit of what components in here. I don't really care about them, but they have a styled input, right? And styled input is a component that is created from styled components using semantics input component right over here, right? If you guys want to learn more about style components, just leave a comment down below and I'll get to it immediately, right? So I have a style component and my submit button component, and the submit button is doing something a bit weird, right? It has a use effect, a hook in React, and what the normal button component, right? To hit what a shiny button. All right. So now this issue is happening because of what I'm hitting the enter button, the enter key, right? And I see a whole lot of weird stuff happening in my console, right? And where is that happening is over here in the use effect, right? So right now use effect has an event listener on the what window, the key app. Then it's listening for any keys that I enter into the web page, right? And when the key I enter is what an enter key, it does what it calls the function that does stuff, right? Where it's a prop that is passed to the submit button over here. So, and in this case, what the function do stuff with counter, weird function name. Don't do that, right? Which is just going to a console log the name that's stored in what's use state, right? Now the weirdness that is happening is that this use effect uh, is just taking in a function, right? It is nice function, and it's just listening for any key events, specifically the enter key, then calls or the function that does stuff. But this whole messy situation that we're having down here, right, is as a result of what this function that does stuff, right? Whenever we enter any new value inside what the form here, right, React will what re-render this entire component, right, and then check those that needs to be what changed. In this case, this function that we have here, do stuff with counter, has been changed, right, with a new what name that has been stored in here, right? So that's why when it hits the shiny button, we get the new value here. My name is, and we have whatever we typed in here. But whenever we hit the enter, then it calls a whole lot of what stuff, right? A whole lot of what stuff that has been going on, right, with React. So it starts from here, trying to re-render everything to what we had to the final word value, which is not what we want, right? And the re-rendering is happening because this use effect is always called every single render. And for every single render, this event handler or this event listener will be what? Created every single render. So anytime we type like this, we type a whole lot, then hit enter. You see a whole mess of what situation because what the browser has initialized new what event handlers for this particular what key event, which is bad, very bad, really bad, right? And there are a few ways we can rectify this particular what, issue, right? The best way that React is telling us to do is what? Remove this event handler or this event listener after every single what render. It's not telling us, but when you read the documentation, it's there. I'll link it to the video description below, right? To remove this event listener every single after every render, right? Because we do not want it to be what initializing every single time. So every single line that you're seeing here is what the browser or the event listener initialize created every single time. So every letter that we enter here, a space bar or anything, it will be initialized again, which is very bad. Right? So in order to rectify that, you we do this weird thing. Right? Oopsies. We do this little weird syntax over here, right? Key up and what handler. All right. Now, what's happening is that we are returning a function, right? This arrow thingy that we are seeing over here is a function in JavaScript. It's a function in JavaScript, right? So this function is what calling the remove event listener for the key up event, right? So anytime React renders this the submit button component, right, and it's trying to clean up or like clear stuff out, is going to call this particular function, right? So return functions inside useEffect are solely meant for cleanups, right? And one of the cleanups is what? Get rid of what? All unnecessary or initialized event listeners on this current page. So let's save that and then let's refresh the page, right? Yeah, don't worry about this weird stuff you're seeing here, right? So now I'm going to type putting a lot of stuff here, right? So I hit my shiny button, my value, it gets the actual what input value. But when I hit the enter key, right, you see it gets what? Immediately gets the actual or the value, the last what render that we have here, right? So initialized. So whenever React was re-rendering, it would initialize this, then the old one, it will get rid of it, right? So whenever we hit the enter key, it will get what the latest what values that we have in what React. All right. So now this is one of the ways that you can use. You can what fix an issue like that, right? This is a convoluted what example, but it's actually quite useful because not a lot of people will type everything and then come back to what hit the shiny button. Some will just hit enter, then they expect what the form or whatever it is to be what submitted. All right. So that's one of the ways. The other way is to what add something or add dependencies to what use effect, right? Now to add dependencies to dependencies for what hooks or use effect is primarily means that you don't want this particular hook to run when none of these stuff that it depends on has changed, right? So if none of the stuff changes, you don't expect this particular hook to run, right? And you put them what in this uh, array stuff, right? This array stuff. So this arrays in what JavaScript. If you guys want tutorials on JavaScript, weird syntax and stuff, just let me know in the comments below, right? Now, when we have an empty dependency like this, it works, but it doesn't work. So it's a two-edged sword, right? It will work for the first time, but it won't work for the in subsequent what re-renders. Because what's happening here in the first time React renders this particular submit button, it will call this use effect, but I will not call it the second time it re-renders because it doesn't depend on anything to render. Right. So let's check that out. So let's reload the page. Right. And then let's put stuff here. So I hit my shiny button, see the values here, but when I hit enter, look at what's happening. Ooh, nothing is there. It's only what my name is, and that's not what we want, right? This is very, very bad. And the reason, as I said, is what? Because React is not rendering the second time. Because anytime you type in here, React is actually what? Re-rendering, right? So after the first time it renders, it won't render again because it has no dependency whatsoever. So to fix this issue, we simply just do what? Add this function that does stuff as a dependency to oopsies to this useEffect hook, right? And what it will do is that anytime this particular function will changes, React is going to call this hook with what? New values in there, right? So let's reload the page. So let's check it out. So put stuff in here a lot, right? So we hit the enter key, then you see that what it prints out the actual value that we've typed in here. Unlike previously, it just print out my name is, and that was all. It's all because of this particular what dependency that has been changed for every single render. So you see that there are two ways to fix that horrible issue that I had in the beginning. One is to what? Just add this one is to just add this what cleanup function, and the other is what add a dependency to this particular hook, right? Now there's a caveat for the first option, this one. Now the caveat is that this particular hook is going to run every single render no matter what, right? Every single render, even if this particular component doesn't get any new values, as long as React is rendering, is going to render this particular use effect because it has no what dependency. But with this version, it has a dependency of a function that does stuff. So if this function doesn't do any stuff, it won't call this what particular hook. So that's it for today, and let me know your thoughts on this particular issue, and if you have any other suggestions, just let me know in the comments below, right? Thanks guys, and have a nice